This podcast is recorded on Aboriginal land. We pay our respects to elders past and present and recognise that sovereignty was never ceded. Welcome back to the Radical Online Leftist Pipeline podcast. My name is Mitch Alexander.
I'm antisemitism envoy Tom Tanuki.
I'm Celeste Little. I haven't got anything else.
Can I be Semitism envoy? Is that a thing?
Semitism.
What we have a Semitism envoy because we need balance. Because I don't think listeners know this, but we follow the ABC impartiality charter. We are beholden to the ABC as being an Australian podcast. But unfortunately, this is something we sort of need to address, I think, up top. We might not be able to record this for much longer. We might have all of the podcasts taken down because, unfortunately, our own anti-Semitism envoy, Tom Tanuki, is also anti-Semitic, according to another anti-Semitism envoy. And so all of our stuff might just be taken offline. It might just be nuked. And our funding from the government might be cut.
Generous, handsome funding that we receive.
If anyone hasn't seen Hypernormalization, I recommend going and checking that out. ASIO, DHS, Department of Agriculture, for some reason, they are funding us to try and run interference to make it look like we live in a democracy. And this is this is part of hypernormalization. I'm allowed to talk about this and say we take funding from many government agencies to run disinformation and talk and like promote a left. Do you think Vic Socialist is an organic party? No. What are you talking about?
Oh, it's all being paid for. It's all part of a destabilization process. You know what I mean?
Albo has been waiting to get the socialist parties up and running, but for nefarious means.
And the podcast ends there. Wouldn't that be that was the end? Thanks, everyone. See you next week. And that was the end of it? Like, that would be a...
That's the podcast.
Jesus, what have I just learned? That'd be shocking. Like, I thought they were joking, but then they ended it. And that must have been, oh, shit, the government are paying for our favourite podcasters.
Hey, just a quick heads up about two things. The first is just a content warning. Coming up later in the show, we are going to be discussing child abuse. It is a great, really hopeful conversation, but obviously it's going to be touching on some pretty horrific content. The other thing as well is that we just had some technical difficulties with the audio this week. So if you hear anything that sounds a bit off, it was. But I think the recording overall is still great, and the conversation is definitely worth listening to. So, Tom, as the ROLP anti-Semitism envoy, can you please tell us about what's been going on in the world of envoys this week?
Gillian Segal has made a string of inept commentaries and comments since she was announced as the the special envoy, to combat anti-Semitism, and I guess we never had high hopes for this report to do anything particularly stellar to combat real anti-Semitism. And we all expected that it was going to be the product of Zionist lobbying and furthering the agenda to criminalise anti-Zionism. So none of us were particularly surprised to see most of the substance of it. But I think a lot of people have been shocked to put the pieces together since her report was released and realise that, hang on, this person who's been tenured by the government is proposing a radical series of reforms to the Migration Act, to academic freedom, to the freedom of religious and charitable organisations to exercise their rights to free speech, to the organisations, to the rights and the liberties of organisations across creative, arts, media spaces to continue to do their jobs. Essentially, it's a wildly anti-democratic and anti-freedom series of measures. And none of it is really out of step with any of the suggestions that those of us who've been paying attention have seen from, Zionist lobbyists in the ear of politicians. I mean, we recall, I know we talked about it a lot in the pod, the federal opposition were leading the charge in it, but the government was playing catch up, It was only a string of crimes being revealed as being the product of an overseas mob figure paying to have anti-Semitic crimes created in order to have something to barter with, I think, how do we describe this, to reduce their sentence. Once that came out, it definitely set back the calls of the politicians during the election campaign and their Zionist lobbyists. They were sent in a tailspin for a while. And I think that's sort of where some of that was left. And they really, all they had to focus on for a little while there was repressing and criminalising anti-Zionist activists, and that's all we saw for a little while since that story. I think you'd probably all agree. But with the report here, we're well back into the swing of a broad, sweeping array of anti-democratic reforms, and how long is it? So since that report came out, we've since then found out that Segal's partner, her husband, made a substantial donation to Advance Australia. And I don't know. I mean, what did Tony Burke have to say about that? What was his suggestion?
So this is something I wanted to get to. Well, yeah, we'll hit it now. So Advance Australia is a group that we've talked about a bunch on this pod. They are the ones that, to quote SBS News, they post right-wing anti-Muslim content, which, if SBS News can say that about your organization like that, it's fucked. They use AI imagery to show quote-unquote hordes of immigrants, never from Sweden, immigrants, brown-skinned immigrants at open houses for rentals. The immigration crisis is ruining this country. It was really rotten shit. And so it's come out that, like you said, her husband donated $50,000 over 2 donations to that group. And Tony Burke has come out and said, in response to a report in the Klaxon where this first came out, Segal said that she didn't know anything about it. Her husband runs it. She had nothing to do with it. And just before I get on to what Tony fucking Burke had to say about it, I just have this fucking problem with figures at a certain level just hiding behind trusts and their partners and their husband. That's a lot of fucking money that is at that point tied into presumably her personal wealth as well.
Yeah, it's a family trust. It's not her husband's trust. It's a family trust. Yeah.
It's owned and it's run by her husband and his brother. But the idea that I've got absolutely nothing to do with it.
Come on.
Well, then sue the newspaper that said you did. Go on.
Yeah,
don't just
let's
fucking
go discovery on it. Yeah, let's do a defamation discovery process.
No, I've got nothing to do with it, right? So, take some fucking responsibility. Ultimately, like you said, Jordan, if it's a family trust, then at the very least you have to you can't just say I had nothing to do with it. I don't care. You have to say, look, I wouldn't do that, or I agree with it, or whatever. But it's in your name.
You're
it's
a beneficiary of it. Yeah.
Exactly.
What do you mean?
Exactly.
But have you ever gone down the road and just bought a beer on a shared account? And, you know what I mean? And not told your partner. You know what I mean? You're just it's just
a $50,000 beer, $50,000 racist beer.
It was it's a sliding tier. It's means testing here. You know what I mean? My beer might well be Gillian Segal's husband's substantial donation. That looks to me like a life-changing figure, and they're trying to go, no, he just did
I don't know what he does with
it. Yeah. I just like democracy. I just believe in donating to different parties and for democracy. It's just healthy for it. The anti-Muslim AI slop racist group Advance Australia. So in response to her saying that she's doesn't know anything about it, doesn't have anything to do with it, Tony Burke had the fucking gall to say, oh, well, you know.
It's a long time since we've been a country where you would blame a woman for decisions of her husband. And so with that in mind, I don't think she's answerable for her husband. She said she didn't know about it. And I've got no reason to do anything other than believe her.
That is a very unique feminist standpoint there, Tony Burke. Fucking hell. Like, you know, Rosie the Riveter shit coming out of Tony Burke's mouth.
Was that ever how traditionalist sort of anti-feminist culture operated? Do you know what I mean? I feel like there's something off about it. Like, did we ever go, bloody Sheilas, they're responsible for what their hubbies do? Like, I don't think that's how the bigotry of the days of yore actually used to structurally work.
If we look at society, no, it was always the other way around because husbands were always responsible for the actions of their wives because coverture existed, and this is what we got our way out of. Like,
that's it. Yeah, so it's kind of off kilter. Like, I thought of something. I thought I need to talk to you about that because I was like, what feels wrong about this? He's missing something.
You know, Tony Burke knows best.
You've just gone, how can I make this an identity politics thing? What's the easiest way to try and shut down any fucking discussion about the fact that her husband donated $50,000 to an organization that wanted to destroy your entire political career?
Amongst other things.
This is something that's been, like, I haven't seen really talked about anywhere. And the actual thing I wanted to get into, Tom, you mentioned how it's a bunch of anti-democratic reform.
Yes.
It's also very much the type of shit that a Liberal government would absolutely love to do at the drop of a hat. If they were in power, absolutely they would be pushing for these exact types of reforms. Yeah. And so I'm just fucking no longer blown away. I might have been 10 years ago. But the fact that the Labor Party have made no indication that they will push back against any of these on a political framework. They have not said in any way that this is against their standpoint, democratically speaking. It's not against party policy. It's not against the things that they believe. They are just fully going, oh, well, we will definitely read it. We'll take it on board, and I think this is great. And if you needed another indication that the Labor Party are a fucking conservative party in this country and are basically indistinguishable from the Liberals, I don't know what else you need. This is right there.
I did see something from yesterday, and I'm really hopeful that this occurs, you know. Like, I don't know whether this is just a bit of pap fed to the media, but it comes out from Josh Butler, who I really respect as a good journo, and it came out in The Guardian. He's a legend. And he said that apparently, purportedly, and this was yesterday, he reported on this, that there has been a groundswell of Labor rank and file members urging the government sort of from inside. Oh, it's the Labor Friends of Palestine group,
Those fucking wet losers.
They're not doing very well. Well, I mean, I'm glad they exist, but I really am, you know what I mean? But I just don't know how much they're being listened to within the machinery of their group.
The fact that it was part of Labor policy from their rank and file to recognize Palestine for so fucking long, and the politicians just ignored it. Like, the politicians regularly don't give a shit about what the rank and file of the party say, especially like the senior cabinet. Like, I bet there's a fucking groundswell. There's always a groundswell of people in Labor or Labor voters hating what Labor do. And the people going, but who else are you going to vote for? The Greens? It's like, fuck, man.
My concern about Labor Friends of Palestine is that it has produced some famous collaborators with the State of Israel during its genocide, like Anthony Albanese.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I mean, he used to, I don't know if did he used to head it or no, he was definitely a member. He was
like a co-founder or something like that. Involved since.
He was heavily involved, whatever his title was. Yeah, so it's produced figures like him, you know what I mean? So a fat lot of that fucking did hate. But no, look, again, I must say, like, whatever my misgivings, my many publicly stated misgivings about Labor, I mean, I'm glad they're there. I'm glad things like that are out in the media, but let's see. I won't wait with bated breath then to manifest change within the party, eh?
I don't know, though. I want to discuss that a bit because I feel like having something like Labor Friends of Palestine or having whatever that fucking green Labor group is that's always pushing for stronger action on climate change, whatever.
Yeah.
I worry that those groups just give cover to the Labor Party.
Well, they do.
To say things in the media like there's a groundswell against it and we're pushing back against it and we've got discussion happening. When in actual fact, do you know what I mean? Like in actual fact, because we also have some politicians like Jed Carney, depending on the issue, Josh Burns, can come out as a bit more of a progressive voice and say, hey, we're not all 100% on board.
Left cover.
Exactly. And so I worry that even if the people in Labour Friends of Palestine, which I have no reason to believe they're not authentic and genuinely wanting to try to make a change, maybe their theory of change is that it's got to be one of the two major parties because nothing's going to happen otherwise. I worry that they're being used, that they're just ruse.
Like, look functionally at what they're doing. They are building power for a party that is doing the thing that they're against. That's like, their fees go to that. Their membership, their involvement, all of that builds power for the Labor Party. But then the fact as well that you've got like 5 groups that are like literally their name is the party against, the party that's currently in power against the thing that the party in power is currently doing. like Labour Friends of Palestine, Labour Against War, Labour for Climate, or whatever the fuck they're called. Like, just have a think about that for more than 1 second and think about like how ridiculous this is.
Yeah,
Labour Friends of Not Shit Little Sound Bites. And like,
this kind of shoehorns in a little bit. But back to old mate John Roth and the advanced stuff, because if we're talking about stances that Labor took, Advance was the major player in the no campaign for the referendum. And, we're talking to the tune of they received $5.2 million of donations. And this Guardian report that I've got up in front of me says that 47% of these donations were dark money, so they were anonymously given. I think we've identified who one of the cunts was who was donating to them. But, they were major players in the Conservative No campaign. Now, I'm pretty notorious for remaining an undecided vote through there, and my basis for that was both, having the ability to have a conversation, but also due to the fact that throughout the entire referendum campaign, it wasn't Indigenous voices dominating and white voices shutting the fuck up and listening. It was actually lobby groups like Advance who were shaping the narrative. And this lot of scum bastards were the ones who were spreading mistruths about special treatment of groups, talking about the Constitution as if it's some pure, righteous document, not some working governmental thing that is designed to be changed and is still full of racism. That's these scumbags. So Labor ran that referendum. This dude, and his company, the Family Trust, donated $50,000, and the best they can come up with was, women aren't responsible for their husband's spending. Like, fuck off.
It's at the bare minimum, your most charitable reading of it is that it's got to speak to the politics of her household. It's got to read that way.
Or what she turns a blind eye to.
What she turns a blind eye to. All the same in this case, hey? And her susceptibility to aggressive lobbying groups, which I think is very relevant when you think about what the substance of her report is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's clearly very receptible to Zionist lobby groups, isn't she?
So that's a really interesting point too, Tom, which links back to what I've been thinking about, is that in this instance, Labor instantly saying, I believe her, it's totally fine, and also seeing the report and not pushing back against it in any way, also reveals what Labor are turning a blind eye to at best, or what they are willing to jump into bed with, right? Like, it's the same sort of thing. And it's come out now that they have donated to a group that ran against Labor, ran against progressivism, leftism. And there was not even a sense of outrage from them. There was not this it's a broad tent. We're totally happy to invite in the people that fucking hate everything that we ostensibly stand for. They don't. We will invite. It's okay. It's all good. We trust her. Her husband's fine. It's like, can you have a fucking spine, at least rhetorically. Can you at least pretend to care about anything, as opposed to just just hand waving this away, being like, "Oh, that's so good. We all donate to everything, don't we? It's all good."
Yeah, it's normal.
Yeah.
Like Tony Burke coming out and be like, "I donated to the Liberal parties." Well, look, we all donate. It's fine. Fucking loser.
Did anyone read the report, by the way? Because
yes.
Okay, firstly, I want to talk about the report. Like, it's 20 pages long. 7 of the pages are just like massive pictures. The one page is a contents page, and then
it's really not very in depth, is it? It's very
it's literally like
bad.
Half of it is pictures. Like a little bit less than half of it is just like single page, like a picture of Anthony Albanese with a quote on it and shit like that.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you've actually read it. Like, I'm not sure how many people are actually reading this stuff, man.
Okay, yeah. But I read it. Not a single footnote in the entire thing, not a single source, no methodology, nothing like that. But this is on page, like actual page 2, like report page 4, from October 2023 to September 24. Anti-Semitic incidents surged by 316%. No footnote, no source. Cool. With over 2,000 cases reported, and then. In the same page, this is the next page, the recommendation of the IHRA fucking definition. So, like, that's 316%, which is a very specific number. Like, that number is from somewhere. Like, tell us where that's from.
Yeah.
Like, what they're clearly hiding here is they're including incidents where people are saying Zionism is terrorism and including that as, their massive surge of anti-Semitism. Like, fucking give me a method. Like, I've read a lot of reports. Like, this is objectively one of the worst. Like, this is not an academic report. This is someone like writing a novel about how much she loves Zionism. That's all it is, with a bunch of pictures in it.
There is, and so just to be clear, and I think because I think you just alluded to it, just so we're all clear, including listeners, those stats, as being said, from October 23 to September 24, anti-Semitic incidents surged by 316%. If anyone's not aware, they specifically come from Julie Nathan's Executive Council of Australian Jewry Anti-Semitism report.
Oh, there you go. That's why you wouldn't reference that.
So she filed an interim one in which she said, things have gone up real quick, and then, but we're going to do an annual one. And then it says in October and November 2023 alone, episodes increased over 700%. That latter one was from the interim, and then the second one came from the annual report. Now, Julie Nathan's Executive Council of Australian Jewry report has always had a fascination only with notions of what it considers to be anti-Semitism. It will often I've had a variety of comrades in there over the years for anti-Zionist sentiment, so I always knew where it stood. And it also, I recall that we used to look at it in the real bemused aspect during all the Patriot movement, which was overwhelmingly Islamophobic in nature. You'll all recall. We know that many of their leaders behind closed doors had anti-Semitic sentiments. They were secret Nazis back then. Nowadays, they're public ones. Their descendants are. But it was overwhelmingly about Islamophobia, and the anti-Semitism report used to pretend that didn't exist, and it just used to go, the racists, and it would just like pick from here and there. It wouldn't even acknowledge that and more recently, like since October the 7th, 2023, we have seen Julie Nathan. I put this in videos of mine. We've seen Julie Nathan share stuff that I would regard as foaming at the mouth, raving anti-Muslim sentiment. And so why fucking would she? Why would any of these people ever mention the fucking Muslims if they fucking hate them? So
the type of shit Advance spends money on.
Yeah.
It's all sort of a piece, isn't it?
There's incredible stuff in this whole report. There's like this page 4 has so much awful stuff in it. Page 4 is worth talking about for an hour alone. There's a bit later on in there. In February 2025, ASIO Director General Mike Burgess declared anti-Semitism Australia's leading threat to life, like greater than heart attacks and smoking.
And murder.
That's not what Mike Burgess said, as I found out from fucking Googling it. Now, what he did say also sounds bad. It said that in terms of threats to life, aka death threats sent online, anti-Semitism is most of their workload. Now, that ain't great. No, that's a real concern. But what he did not say was that the leading threat to life in all of Australia is anti-Semitism. And why is the anti-Semitism fucking envoy getting that wrong in her report that includes a raft of recommendations that will change Australian society toward the authoritarian? Don't you think that's fucking incredible?
Yeah.
Even worse, I'm not even going to stop. While I'm on a roll, I mentioned this 2 years before, and I'm like, hang on. We chatted about this just before the pod. We didn't get far. I kept looking around. I'm not sure if many people have mentioned this or if at all. Listeners, if I'm wrong, send me through something, because I'm looking around for people commenting on this and I'm not sure. I happen to have been immediately aware of this because I was familiar with the work of Alex Rivchin and was regularly commenting on for the election. So I read through Alex Rivchin's 15-point plan to combat anti-Semitism from February, which I just clearly described, at least in my videos, maybe even on this pod in chats, I don't know, as a deeply anti-democratic authoritarian raft of recommendations to do things like, I'll read through them. He says, anti-Semitism education should be included in the national curriculum. We should do public awareness campaigns, about anti-Semitism. We should declare a national emergency. We should ban universities and campuses. We should universities have to disclose all their funding. Charitable institutions should have their charity status revoked if they promote anti-Semitism. Migration Act should be reformed. I don't know if this is ringing any bells with anyone here. What I'm getting at is every single fucking thing that Alex Rivchin suggested in his radically anti-democratic series of proposals is in the report. Not some of them, all of them. And in fact, when you delete them from her report, all you're left with is about 3 or 4 different wishy-washy points about interfaith dialogue and
all the pictures
of sports organisations of anti-Semitism. Bullshit. And the IHRA stuff, but he also campaigns on that. So what I'm saying is she copied his homework, man. She lifted point for point what Alex Rivchin said. That's how in bed she is with him.
She's just got a bunch of pictures and put it between the points and hope we didn't notice.
Yeah.
It's a really
scary.
Good pensive picture of Albo as well. It's just quite a nice photo of him. He looks really serious.
Yeah.
Serious, pensive Albo. No, I'm taking this seriously. And I mean, this is another thing as well. I just want to, I know it's petty, but and it's petty because I don't fucking think that I'll ever get anything good out of this Labor government, right? But remember when Peter Khalil was made special envoy for social cohesion before the last election? And then it turned out
2 emails.
That cunt had sent 2 fucking emails and not filed a single proper report the entire time.
Yeah.
And there's no outrage on that. There's nothing even from the Labor Party being we are shocked and appalled that he did nothing. We'll get rid of him and because we're taking this seriously. It's part of it comes back to my no one's in charge thing. There's no one to complain to thesis of the world. We're they don't even give a shit anymore. They don't care. They'll get this report and they'll just fucking follow it when it's politically expedient to do so. They don't give a shit that Pete did nothing all election.
No, that was the point. They
don't care that she's got no fucking references in the report. Whatever. What are you going to do? Pete, it's so fucking lazy at the moment. We need I keep saying, we need a type of authoritarian that cares about this country.
They're not even good fascists.
All that's left is to hope that that's all that's left to us is to hope that the incoming fascists might be a bit more, magnanimous.
Here's what we're campaigning on: fascists with footnotes.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Well, we were all shocked by the recent news of a horrific spate of sexual abuses uncovered in childcare centres across Victoria. And since then, and during, in the public and media discourse, we've listened to a variety of demands from advocates, pundits, and policymakers as to what should be done, with childcare to better protect children. I'm delighted to have as our guest someone that has, I think, been one of the better and most informed advocates that I've heard from speaking to this issue. She's a survivor advocate who works with the Australian Childhood Foundation, and she is leading calls to reform the working with children check process. She's Emma Kansson, and thanks so much for joining us on the pod, mate.
Thanks for having me. Always glad to get a chance to talk.
Yeah, rad. Well, hand it over to you then, mate. Could you start by telling us broadly, why are you calling for reforms to specifically, I suppose, the working with children check process or, childcare more broadly?
Yeah, so the working with children check currently is just a police check. I think a lot of people thought it was this really complex system that made sure that you were a safe person to work with children, but there's a huge difference between being a safe person to work with children and just not having been convicted of a crime of child abuse in the past or another crime that has also deemed you not fit to have a working with children check. A part of the issue is that, obviously most perpetrators of child sexual abuse and other forms of abuse never have a criminal conviction, and so there are people who just sail on through. Even those that do have those convictions sometimes also sail on through. But despite that whole thing, we also need to acknowledge that for people to be safe to work with children, they need to be able to help prevent child abuse, not just not be the one causing it. So we're saying that you should have to go through some pretty foundational, not overly complex, we don't want it to be a barrier for people, but some base level knowledge on how to prevent child abuse, which means understanding the risks, how prevalent it is. People don't realise that 28.5% of kids are sexually abused, and that it's not just the kind of archetypal person, but that it could be anyone. Also that some children harm other children, and that is also a serious thing to deal with. Anyway, I could go on about what's in training, and I can later if you want, but basically you don't have to do any training to have a working with children check, whereas to do other things like serve alcohol, you have to do about a day of training and pass a test to show that you are equipped to do so responsibly. And a few years ago, I, with the Childhood Foundation, started this survey. I went to the foundation and said, I was sexually abused as a child, and there were all kinds of things that were done badly that could have been done differently. And so I come from this perspective where I have thoughts on what people could be doing differently. And I'm sure that there are a lot of other people who have not the same thoughts, but lots of different thoughts. And it'd be important to compile all of them together. And so we did a survey of 350 child sexual abuse survivors across the country, all adults, but some were super young, some were really, really old. And they all were asked, what could have been done differently, what was not done, what could have been said differently or that was not said at all. And we just heard about the utter failure, basically, of that so many children were left to deal with. And it was from that survey that we came up with the call that we need to have training in the Working with Children check, because 5.8 million people across the country hold one. And so while the government does these very expensive kind of just general awareness raising campaigns, we actually have an existing platform that could mean people know how to deal with this problem better. So that's why we're doing it, because survivors told us, in other words, that it'd be a good idea. And now I chair an advisory group of 10 other survivors to lead the way we campaign for the reform, so that it's consistently survivors working towards what we think could have helped us and can help kids now.
So we recognise, I guess, that at times like this, it's when these discussions are being held on a national level, that that there's it's an effective time to talk about these things. But you're saying as a result of this, you've been having these conversations. How has the process been generally? I mean, do you feel that your campaigning for reforms has been making headway so far?
So we formally launched the report and the call to action in Victoria's Parliament 18 months ago, and we didn't get very far. And I have spoken to so many ministers' offices, both federally and in the state, over the last 2 weeks, including so many that I hadn't got to speak to despite all my efforts for all of the time before that. And so I think, and I got a lot of calls of this must be a really hard week. And it was, but it's hard for me because of the inaction. I'm aware child abuse happens. That wasn't a shock to me. And it's not a shock, not just as a survivor, but as someone who works on it. I track every time there's a news report of a Working with Children check holder being convicted of child abuse to make the point of why it's needed. But I think, unfortunately, the same way the Port Arthur massacre led to gun safety reform quite quickly, I hope that this may do a similar thing.
Yeah.
Have you seen any indication so far that it might? Is there even just vibes based? Do you think that there actually might be some movement now in the areas that you want there to be movement?
Yeah, definitely. The meetings have become more serious with sharing costings. I do believe, and I'm on a more optimistic day, but I genuinely think that we'll get it done if there's enough public support for it.
Cool.
Can I ask, just to dwell into it, you did say you could go further into the training, but just as so you went from the aggregate feedback of a lot of survivors, you said around 300, I think, to suggesting that training sessions would help. Is it just because the notion is there that if anything were in place that made for a more educated workforce of people, then that might have saved people in so many situations? Perhaps if you could speak to a little bit more about what's in the training and why you think that kind of general training session might make all the difference.
Yeah, so I think one question we get asked is, well, how is training going to stop people from abusing kids? And it's not. The training is not about having someone suddenly not want to abuse children anymore. The training is making sure that every other safe adult around a person who is going to try to abuse children has the tools that they need to make sure that doesn't happen, or so that they can intervene as early as possible, so that, I was showing signs as a child that I was being groomed, that I was in the earlier stages of abuse. And even then, if you can intervene then, you can stop awful things happening, even if you've kind of missed the beginning. And so the training would do a lot of things. The first would be to understand what does grooming look like, which is importantly not just about how does an adult groom a child, but how does an adult essentially groom a whole community to see them in a certain way and to overlook the fact, the person who abused me, the person who abused most people has really good social standing and is considered trustworthy, and that is how they have access. So helping people understand that, helping people understand how to break down their misconceptions. I was abused by a woman. My mum made a list of every person she thought I was being sexually abused by because she was so convinced that it was happening. But that list just didn't have any women on it, and so it was missed. And I was also not asked the right questions. So many people are not asked the right questions because children are asked, I was asked, were you sexually abused? A 9-year-old doesn't know what that means. I was asked if I was hurt, which I thought meant, did someone push me over? So I said no. And there are so many different examples of this. It's not just me. So helping people understand how to develop a shared language and to speak the way children speak, not just expecting how an adult speaks is going to come to you. And to try to really get people to realize that the weight and responsibility of communication should lie on adult shoulders, because a lot of the training that occurs outside of the Working with Children check and other safeguarding mechanisms, including in childcare, is what do you do if a child discloses sexual abuse to you? But on average, people don't disclose child sexual abuse for over 20 years. So if we're waiting for that, we've failed unequivocally.
You're not going to get anywhere. Yeah.
Nowhere. So it looks at that. It looks at a lot of other things, including how to make sure that just our day-to-day interaction isn't eroding a child's sense of autonomy, which we do in a lot of ways that we don't think about, because I don't really think we view children as full people. And that's really important, because if you're telling children when they cross the road on an excursion that they have to hold hands, and we're not even checking that they're okay with that, like we're just teaching them that actually your body and your interests and what you want is secondary to whatever an adult is telling you. And that's obviously a really dangerous lesson.
I had a question on something that you kind of touched on before. You mentioned that that you weren't particularly surprised that, something had happened. But I think for me, and I think for many people, the surprising thing, like, because we hear stories about this all the time. When I worked at the redress scheme, every time George Pell was on the news, like the phones would go off like nobody's fucking business. But the thing that like shocked me was just how many centres this person had worked at, and like they're still coming out. Like another 4 came out today. And like it sounds like to me, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the answer isn't just like banning men from, changing children's nappies and stuff like that. It's like paying people well enough and uncasualizing their workplaces so that they work at one place and you can keep track of employees and whatever. But also, as you said, like making the working with children's check thing something that's not just a random police check where they search your name and be like, can't find anything, so it's all good. And education, like all of this, like that's the most shocking thing, and that's very easily fixed. But obviously, we're not going to pay people well. That's ridiculous. But what do you think about that?
And I think the first thing I thought when I saw this story was, fuck, that's a lot of places to have worked in not very long. And then it was that I was like, oh, it's because he's a casual. It's because he was also working in like the main teacher is away, and so he's filling in. And even since that story's come out, we've heard lots of childcare workers. The childcare union came out and said that they did a survey even before this happened, where so many childcare workers had said that they felt unable to keep children safe because of the way the industry, which it's an industry now, is structured. Where they just never have enough people. You need to be able to have like a good ratio of children to adults. And so it has been incentivized around profit now instead of around child wellbeing. 100%. And that's a huge aspect of it.
You're not the only one, as we talked about earlier, in the media at the moment, making commentary on changes to childcare. More's the pity, because we also have people who've received a ton of airtime, a lot of they've been all over the tabloid and the morning media and everywhere, really, making the suggestion that, as Jordan mentioned as well, that men should be banned from childcare altogether, banned from the nappy rooms, just banned from certain sensitive beds. What are your thoughts on that?
I think, to start with, I can understand how people would have like a reaction like that. And I think it's important to acknowledge that like UNSW came out with a study that said 1 in 10 Australian men had admitted to child sexual abuse, either in person or by consuming content related to it. So like, as with in many other spaces, men have work to do, and there's no question that patriarchy plays a role in this. However, I have a big however. For starters, I'm frustrated by the fact that there's so much airtime being given to something that is never going to happen, because our anti-discrimination laws mean that it couldn't happen, because you can't ban someone based on their gender from a certain role. So just like practically. But also I thought that part of the feminist movement and everything was about making us realize that men need to be able to be seen as caring, and to unpack toxic masculinity is to realize that men can be carers too, and that's not just like a gendered role. So if we say men shouldn't be trusted with children ever, we're just kind of fully giving up on the possibility of having caring men, which is, I think, fundamentally in opposition to what we should be doing.
Or non-gendered roles or anything like that.
Yes, exactly. And so there are not many men in childcare because men are not encouraged into the, like, it's called a pink collar job. And I think that is a problem. And we have to be able to make sure that, again, people are equipped to spot if a man or a woman or anyone is a dangerous person. But gender alone is not the marker of if you're going to be unsafe with kids or not.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the people making these calls suggest that the overwhelming majority of the abuse comes from a tiny minority of men in the system. I do have my questions. As a lay person, I had my questions about some of the studies that led to that, because I thought that some of them were from overseas, or other ones seem to have a very limited sample size. But regardless, though, I mean, you suggested to yourself earlier that, as a survivor, that some of the leading questions that you as a child received perhaps obfuscated, worked to obfuscate gender anyway, in a way. I mean, can you speak to that? Do you have anything to say about these studies or what?
Yeah, I think the first is that it's easier for people to think that it's a small minority of people causing a lot of harm. But unfortunately, the reality is that there's a lot of people causing a lot of harm, and that's scarier to acknowledge. And it's scarier to acknowledge that you might not be able to pick the person, and that it could be your friend, it could be your coworker. Like, that is much more confronting, and so I think that's why we've not confronted it. But it's also not helpful. And it's not helpful to kind of leave out people who it is, I think, me having been abused by a woman as a woman who was a girl at the time is like the most rare combination, but it still happens. There are young boys who are abused by older women, and they are often treated as like, you should be so lucky, which is disgusting. And there are so many different dynamics that happen, and they're all unacceptable forms of child sexual abuse. And I think that we kind of put this adult layer of gender dynamic that isn't there, because ultimately, while I said patriarchy comes into it to a degree, children are an oppressed class of people, and I don't think we view them that way. And any adult is able to do that.
This is such a helpful conversation. It really, even though I've listened to your media spots, it's illuminating even just to have you on for a little while. Thank you so much, Emma. Where can people go and read better stuff than, so we've talked about some real mixed bag coverage in the media lately. Please point people listening to this, point us in the better world. Where can we go and read better stuff? Where can we go and read about some of the work that, you've done with the foundation? Yeah, tell us where to go to read better things.
And where we can find you as well, particularly.
Yes.
So the Australian Childhood Foundation, if you look up Australian Childhood Foundation, Our Collective Experience Project, that's the name of this survivor-led initiative. And there you'll find two reports. One has the findings of this survey, and one looks specifically at the Working with Children check in depth. You can find the foundation by searching the name of it everywhere. And you can find me as Hakame, which is a made-up thing, so it's spelled Hakame. They're the places. There's also the National Centre for Action on Child Sexual Abuse that does really good work. And the Australian Childhood Maltreatment Study is the biggest ever study in Australia about different types of child abuse, how frequently they occur, the long-term impact, all that kind of thing. So if you want to just get a sense of what we're dealing with, that is the place to go.
Finally, as well, is there any upcoming actions, petitions, anything that people should actively be doing to help you and everyone else?
Yes. So if you go to the same page I mentioned, or my Instagram, or the foundation's Instagram, it's in both our bio links, whatever. We currently have an action where it will email both the ministers in charge and your specific MP, calling for them to mandate the child abuse prevention education in the Working with Children check. And we've got quite a few, and when you get to that mass level, it becomes really powerful. So the more, the better.
Hell yeah.
Sick.